Oh, really? That's amazing to get invited to the White House.
Yeah, we're putting our social media out. We're just a little bit behind, so so I'm happy to talk about it. But it was a very cool event. It's been all over. The media was there and everything. So
Oh, that's amazing. That's amazing.
mhm.
You guys been doing this for what, a little bit over 20 years? Was it?
I founded the company in 2004.
Yeah, that's right. About 20 years. So you've been
20,
doing,
yeah, coming up
yeah,
on 21.
yeah,
So
coming up on 21 years around the corner. But what made you start it?
So, I mean, I have a lot of history in med tech, and my background started in cardiovascular and orthopedics. And I just felt like women's health was so underserved. And as a woman looking at my own healthcare needs, I didn't think anything out there, particularly for birth control and looking at infertility. I just didn't think it was suitable. So I thought, I could really make a very big difference in an area where I personally could put my thoughts forward and develop. I'm the lead inventor on all the technologies at Femasys. So I poured my heart and soul into these products. These are products I would use on myself or recommend for my daughters. So I started the company because I just felt like there was just a great need. So
I see you have like multiple product lines. So these products are on the shelf, they're already out there. People are using them. Am I
yeah,
correct?
so we have one product that's still in clinical trial, which is our big product for permanent birth control. It's non-surgical, called FemBlock. It's in an in-office solution where a woman, if she wants to end her risk of pregnancy and doesn't want to stay on hormones and have implants and go to surgery, she can walk in the door and walk out the door a few minutes later and have permanent birth control. So we're the only company left doing any research in this area, and we're on our final stage work in our clinical trial. We're at a number of different sites, so patients are exposed to that product through the clinical trial process. For our other product lines, we have 6 other products that are FDA through the FDA process. We have approval in Europe for all of our products, in Canada, and some of our products have approval in Japan, and we're broadening out country approvals as well. And those products focus on infertility. So we have a therapeutic infertility solution where there hasn't been anything new in over 40 years, and we're looking to change that. So it's a frontline solution. It would be done first. We place sperm exactly where it needs to go. So biologically, it just makes sense. And we have a sperm issue around the world where there's just less of it, less sperm count, affecting over 50% of men. And we've seen a huge decline in numbers of sperm. So we put it exactly where it needs to go, which is ever more important when you have less of it. We also have a diagnostic product called FemVue that helps complement that product. And then we have a cancer diagnostic line that we have available and that we'll be expanding also. So a number of products, a broad portfolio of women's health products.
No, I see that you guys have a lot, and these products are how is the market adapting to the you're putting out these products?
It's been, really well received, whether it's in the clinical trial where we see utter desperation, where women are looking for options. A lot of them are getting turned away from their doctors because they can't get a tubal ligation surgery. There's long lead times. I mean, post the Dobbs decision, people are afraid they may not be able to have access to care. So they really are looking at their contraceptive choices and deciding, look, I don't want to have that risk any longer. So we're seeing a real big favorable response to people coming to the clinical trial sites to participate in a trial. When we look at the other end of the spectrum, when we're looking at making babies, it's just desperation. Financially, it's a lot of hardship when people have to consider IVF. And then look at like an Alabama ruling where they say, life begins in the petri dish. Now you have to maintain the embryos that you're creating. So you have maintenance charges. Like, when does that end? Is it forever? So there's a lot of that comes into question. And injections and surgery to remove the eggs. It's financially, a hardship, an emotional hardship. So we want to be at the front line. We want to enhance natural fertilization, take what the body's meant to do and help it do it. So it's much more cost affordable because we eliminate everything like surgery and all the injections and such. And women can have a choice for something new when there hasn't been something new in the space in a really long time. So we're excited about, we're making babies already. We just got out there with our commercial team. I founded the company 20 years ago. I think that's how we started the podcast. I didn't even realize you were recording when we started. We're just chatting. So anyway, 20 years, and this is the first time where we put money behind a commercial team because it's really hard to fund women's health.
Yeah.
And, I'm really excited about that. I didn't invent these products and work this hard for 20 years to have these great inventions sit on the shelf. It's meant to be in the hands of women and to be able to help them with whatever part of their journey they're on. But yeah, we're excited about where we're at right now.
You should be, because you're actually, if you look at the data and you look at the U.S. Census, you look at the data out there, we're actually having actually the world is actually having a birth rate problem. It's surprisingly, China's having a birth rate problem as well.
Yep.
Other countries are taking significant hits. Countries are going through great length to get people to have more babies, because probably in a decade or so, we're going to really have a serious problems. But you mentioned how the sperm count's at its lowest. A lot of people can't have kids. Do you believe it's like the food, or do you believe like is what we're eating is and then the second part of that question would be is your product, that these six products that you have, one six in the commercial stage and one in late stage clinical trial, am I correct?
Correct.
And the second part is like these trials are like, how fast these products, besides the cancer one, how fast do you think they work? I know the fem blocker, the birth control, is like that should work in a month or less than a month, right?
So lots of questions there.
Yeah.
So I'll start with the first one. Nobody knows why we're seeing, this decline in sperm count. There's a lot of theories. Is it plasticizers? Is it, global warming? Is it what we're eating? Is it just people are waiting longer? Whatever it is, I don't think it's one isolated thing. So I know it's not something we can pinpoint and say we can fix that. It's probably a combination of things. So I don't think it's going away. Unfortunately, I think it's probably only going to get worse. And, it's heartbreaking when you have a 20-something-year-old approach you and say, I have really low sperm count. Me and my wife can't get pregnant. And they're like 24 years old. And that's not when you're supposed to hear these conversations and when you're supposed to see people struggling. So I think we're going to start to see this happen at the younger age group. And then it's certainly only going to get worse as people continue to wait to have children. It's not a situation that's going to get better. As far as how quickly the product works, for FemaSeed, which is the infertility solution, the sperm, the person comes with their sperm, or they make sperm right there on the premise, and then it's prepared, and then it's placed in their partner. And within 2 to 3 weeks, they'll know whether or not they're pregnant. So it's a really fast process. I mean, our pregnancy tests are wonderful now, pretty quickly, and then they can either try again or, try something else. It's just, not having enough options, not giving people a choice to say, with your pocketbook, because most of it's out of pocket, what can you afford to spend when you want to have a family? Like, where it's really, even though we say governments and countries are going to great lengths, but there's 10 million women that are infertile in this country, and we don't have universal coverage. People are still paying out of pocket. We have covered states. And then I just did this like massive survey, like over 1,000 women across different states. I'm going to publish it. But what it basically said was, even though they say it's in a covered state, they're still spending tens of thousands of dollars anyway. So what's covered, what isn't? There's a lot of hidden costs. There's a menu of services. Like if you're going to go through it, do you pick the genetic testing and pay out of pocket? Probably. So you keep adding the cost. So everything adds up, and it's grueling for the relationship. So there is a step one in the process. Like I feel like we're bringing the best step one. Might not work, but it might. We're bringing a better chance at it. So it's a pretty immediate thing. If you call within a month, pretty immediate. For FemBlock, as far as timing, we actually deliver our solution, and then the patient comes back 3 months later for a confirmation test. And what we didn't know, like the only solution for women right now is surgery. It's been around since the 1800s. The 1800s. We've had nothing new. So to take care of a basic healthcare need, a woman has to go through general anesthesia. She has to have incision. She has to go to an OR. She has to have a procedure. And it's a basic healthcare need. She's not actually sick. So when we think about that and the cost involved, particularly post-COVID, when surgery and OR time is more expensive, in a hospital setting, having an office solution where a woman doesn't need anyone to drive her. She can walk in the door, she can take care of it and walk out the door 3 months later, make sure it worked. And that's it. We basically promote her own tissue and growth. So we leave the most natural approach. We leave her with her own tissues so that we don't leave a foreign body. We don't have to worry about ongoing safety issues that we've seen torment women with other solutions. So, it takes that 3 months till the confirmation, but that's pretty quick when we think about women having to contend with birth control for months on end.
So like I'm putting my like retail investor hat on, and with the birth control, are these like can insurance provide them?
Yeah, so right now it would be covered under the Affordable Care Act. So we would envision when FemBlock's on the market, and there might be a different version of the Affordable Care Act, but it behooves the country to take care of it from a patient perspective, because it's really expensive to have a baby when you don't want one. And it's really, really trying to think if somebody wants to get an abortion, where they would need to go to get one. So it behooves the country and government and everything else to make sure that this remains covered from a patient perspective. But from a physician standpoint, when they go to surgery to do a tubal ligation surgery, tie somebody's tubes right now, it's not a profit center. They make a few $100s. It's not something that, it's a service that they're providing. It's a procedure. Most of the money that's made goes to the hospital, the anesthesiologist, the OR time, the staff, et cetera. For FemBlock, we would have the charge of the device, but then all of the rest of it goes down to the bottom line for the physician. So it is likely to be a very profitable procedure for them to do in their office. And ultimately, I can see, which happens with FemaSeed right now, the infertility product, is that we have nurses doing it. So there's not enough physicians, period. And there's certainly not enough infertility doctors. So even in our trial for FemaSeed, we had nurses and PAs perform the procedure. About 25% of our sites use what's called advanced practice providers, and that allows them to utilize their staff properly. And maybe those are infertility doctors just do IVF, and then their team and their staff and their satellite offices, so we can make this more accessible to women. Branch this out, and maybe one day we as a company can get this in the OBGYN's hands, which would be the ultimate goal, so that the person that sees them first, put her on birth control when she was young, and now she wants to have a baby, takes her off birth control, and that's the person that she's seeing, could help her have her first shot at attempting to have pregnancy if she's having a hard time. So that's ultimately where we see this going.
Okay. So I'm gonna take it from everything you just said with how you want this to be positioned in the marketing. Do you have what's your sales and marketing team look like? What I
So,
mean, to get out to doctors and get out to offices, or even talk to like large. Do you guys even talk to large insurance companies?
yep. Yes, we do. So, we're targeting the infertility specialists first. So in this country, there's only about 1,700 of them. We know exactly where they're located. There's about 450 practices, and there is a physician shortage in that area. And that's a very discrete group. So we have a smaller commercial footprint that could hit that group head on. As we look in the future, and, we're always looking to see, how are we going to get to the patient? That's going to be where this explodes. This is going to be I believe that explosive piece of it next is get it to the OBGYNs, and we'll need to broaden our commercial team to do that because there's about 40,000 GYNs. So it's a smaller team addressing this very defined market. And from a marketing standpoint, look, social media, podcasts, these are all things that have changed the game. It is easy to reach the patient. A woman that's infertile or someone in the LGBTQ community that's looking to have a baby, they're a force to be reckoned with. They're looking online for solutions. They're trying to find ways in which they can deal with the issue at hand. So we're able to, and we're trying not to focus on the patient just yet. We were the first 6 months of our launch. We've only been in the market for 6 months, roughly, a little under 6 months. And so we've been educating the physicians, making sure we reach them so they're aware of the product. And we announced 2 major conglomerates in the space are going to be offering the product. There's only about 8 conglomerates. So we've already achieved 2 of them in less than 6 months time, which is incredible. It's a really good housekeeping seal of approval. They've looked at the data. They're excited. They want to, bring it to their centers and attract the patients because it's a referral business. They don't have these patients. They're being referred from their OBGYNs. So the marketing dollars are real tight. First it's an awareness for the physicians. And next year we're going to look at broadening this out so that we can reach the patient and educate them and draw the 2 together, bring the patients to the physicians.
Oh, you kind of segued into my other question, but before I get into that one, now, so I know how big pharmacy companies come, kind of the doctor becomes their advocate. They kind of sell the medicine to the doctor, tell her how it works, and the doctor kind of becomes their advocate for using this product or using this medicine, whatever the case may be. So it seems like the doctor has to be your advocate here. So am I understanding that correctly before?
I think the doctor's always needs to be an advocate for any medical related solution, but where this is a little bit different, it's like birth control too. Women make choices. A doctor might say, well, I really like the pill, but guess what? That doctor's not taking the pill, right? The patient might say, look, I want this because it's her choice and her body. From a dollar standpoint, the doctor might say, look, I really want to do IVF for you. It's only going to cost you $35,000, $50,000. And she might say, her and her partner or whomever might say, I can't do that. I can't spend $30,000, $50,000. I only have this much money to spend. So there's such a financial piece to this and an emotional piece of what, that patient's willing to go through at that moment in time. And that can evolve as our journey evolves. So it's a little bit different because a doctor really doesn't have as much of a say. It's more the doctor's role is to offer the menu of choices. And so that's why our products are a little bit different because they're approved. They're proven to be safe. They're proven to be efficacious. So why not offer the menu of choices so that your patient can choose what they want to, encounter at whatever part of their journey. So I think the patient's very much the driving force in Femasys solutions, particularly on the infertility and birth control side. A little bit different when they're getting sampled for cervical cancer. That's a little bit different. That's a, cancer diagnosis. But for infertility and birth control, she's kind of in the driver's seat.
Now I got kind of have a grasp of it where this is at now. So you're kind of putting with these products, these pipeline, you're kind of putting this stuff on the patient, and the patient is kind of coming to the doctor and say look, I did my research, I found this company, and I think this will be the best for me, and the doctor is kind of guiding them and say oh, this is this and this. Basically, yeah, it definitely would help too. Yeah.
So the doctor could become aware and then and the patient comes in and say, we have this new therapy, that we're launching, like this is brand new and we're excited about it. We're the first center to do it. Like Boston IVF was the first conglomerate to do this. They're going to be able to say we're the first forever because they're the first. And they'll say, look, we care about your dollars. We care about you. We think you're a good candidate for this. This is what it's going to cost. This is what it does. We have a patient brochure and pamphlets and all this so they can learn about it, a website. And then that could be how she becomes aware of it, or she can learn about it through us or through social media, YouTube, people, post things, and she can come to the door and say, do you do this? Because this is what I want. And I know that a nurse can do it for them. So it's not something every physician on this planet that's a GYN or an infertility specialist is capable of doing this procedure. And so are their nurses and their PAs, so that they could call us and say, I just had a patient drop by who wants to have FemaSeed. Tell me about it because I want to offer it to them, and we can work with them. So come both ways.
I read the article about the conglomerate that you guys are partnering up with and collaborating with. When does that fully roll out for you guys next year?
Yeah, we're starting the rollout right now, post the announcement. And there's several centers within each conglomerate. So we naturally will go to the ones that step up first and then continue to roll them out center over center. So it's starting right now. We're very excited about it. HRC Fertility was the second conglomerate. They're more on the West Coast. And then Boston IVF's more on the East Coast. And then we're in discussions with like pretty much all of them. So as they all start to come up, it'll help make this accessible because there's no downside to offering it. Patients get to choose. Otherwise, patients can walk out the door, because right now what's offered, IUI, is known not to work very well. Single-digit success rates. So patients know that too. It's been around 4 decades. They talk to people. They know it doesn't work well. So if they don't want to do an IVF, a lot of times they don't do anything. And they just go home and they sit on the sidelines. We have millions and millions of people that are sitting there that want to have a baby, that are infertile, that have been trying for a long time and just not moving forward in their care because of all these reasons we've already talked about. So it's really enabling. And as you said before, we have a crisis because we don't have enough babies being born in every country around the world, but I think sub-Saharan Africa, even India, China, Japan, they're the first where it's going to hit the wall. But we have this crisis in the US. I mean, we've reported our lowest birth rates in 30 years in almost every state. So we're already in crisis mode. And, I wish more people were talking about it because they're not getting IVFs. There's only 200,000 IVFs approximately done every year, and there's 10 million infertile women. What's happening to the 9.8 million people? So that's if we can get 9.8 million people to move forward, we'd have less of a baby crisis here in the US.
Yeah, and that's completely true. I think we just haven't hit that point in the bell curve where it actually means something, and I think that's coming up soon because you're gonna start as you a couple years ago you heard about there was a birth rate problem. Now you're starting hearing about it more and more as more countries offer incentives for women to stay home. We'll give you a year or two off, paid leave for a year or two. Oh, if you have a kid, we'll give you $10,000 or $15,000. Like other countries are doing that,
Yep.
and which also brings your company into play. It's like, okay, now I have the resources and the government's providing the resources. Well, I can't have a kid now. So now this is where stuff like your company comes into play and IVF comes into play. And I think we're almost close to that part in this world where that a lot of companies like yours are going to see a big volume up. And to me, the question that comes in mind, how are you going to capture, because you guys are kind of already ready. You guys already got the conglomerate rolled out. You guys already have the product on the shelf. I mean, how are you going to get pretty much the audience, the patients, the potential patients, the people that are going to use your product? How are you guys going to inform of your product? It's like,
yeah,
hey
I
guys,
mean,
we're
gonna go social media. Yeah, and you can geo target. I mean, I do that for the trials. Like, there's so much demand for FemBlock. There's going to be so much demand for FemaSeed. Like, we can take a center that comes up like one of these conglomerates, and we can say, all right, in a 100-mile radius, geo-target, let them know it's available. Let them know that there's a practice they can go to. I can also make it a blitz across the nation. You're so right that no one's it's starting to come into the discussion. The sad part is we know in less than 10 years, there'll be less 18-year-olds than there will be 60-year-olds. It's just a fact. It's already happening. And even with FemaSeed and the babies we're already making today, you got to wait 18 years before they can work. So we're going to it's already a crisis. So it's, there's no other company like ours. If they were to start, it took me 10 years to get FemaSeed through. 10. Working with FDA, 10 years. So, it's a long process. There's drugs in development. There's IVF stuff happening, but nobody looked at the front end. We are an N of one company out there, N of one. And nobody really knows about us. I took the company public in June of 21. It was really hard. I did it without a CFO even. I just grit.
It's a really hard thing to do.
Grit. It's a really hard thing to do.
I have a very hard thing to do.
Yeah, it was hard. But it just shows we're out there. We need the support. We need people to hear about what we're doing because there's nothing out there. And if they started today, it's going to be years before they actually have an impact. And this is here and now. And we just need to get going. So we feel a lot of that pressure. I feel the pressure. I go out and see patients. We're really excited about what this means for our country, what this means for the individual patient, for the family. When you think about the aging population and people that wanted to have kids and they don't have anybody that has their back because there was no good solutions for them to try. It's not because they didn't want it. We can do better than this. So I'm glad you're talking to me because people don't know about Femasys and I'm hoping, I try, we want people to support us, support women. It's an important thing to help move our country forward. And I'm hopeful that,
100%.
Women are in the discussion now.
Yeah, 100%. And the other about support that I want to bring up. So I want to kind of bring it back to the retail investors investing. What would you say to get the retail investors keep supporting you, keep having the stock in their portfolio and say, look, this is our plan for 2025. This is what we're looking to do. Anything towards that for the retail investors? Because from what I've understand, there's a lot of people that is supporting your company already by buying the stock.
Mm-hmm.
And what incentive can you say that would keep them there? Because at some point they want to start seeing results and start seeing numbers on the board of this working.
Yeah, we're for the first time a revenue company, a revenue story. The thing that we did to prepare for this moment is we are a U.S. manufacturer. It's in vogue now to do that. We did that over a decade ago. We prepared for this moment. Gross margins are almost 70% already. That's unheard of for medtech. Usually it's 4 or 5 years out before you get to that. That's because we did it in advance. We are ready for this moment. We are building product, putting it on the shelf, ready. We're not third party supplying this. We're not getting our components from a different country. We didn't have the supply chain issues because we're a full-blown manufacturer here in the US. So that's one thing to bring, risk mitigation for this because it's explosive. And a lot of companies I see get there from a regulatory standpoint, they get the approval, but then they can't profitably deliver it to the market because they didn't worry about that part of the house. But we've worried about all parts of the house. From an investor standpoint, this is a turning point for Femasys. We're going to put revenue on the board and we are never looking back because, that will have an impact on our stock. We know that it will, and it will become very visible because there is a significant need and we have no competitive threat. Where can you say that in medicine where there's no competition? The competitive alternative has been around for decades and it's known not to work. So we are not replacing IVF. We are replacing the first step in the process. And we are trying to get women off the sidelines to attempt pregnancy. So for all those reasons, there's not the same threats that you normally see when a product is being launched. And then from the standpoint of FemBlock, I went to a conference recently. It's my words. I usually say it's the Holy Grail. This is going to change women's healthcare forever. It's my invention. I've worked 20 years at it. We're in clinical work. We are at our final stage of clinical work. We have 5-year safety data for our patients. We don't hurt anybody. And lots of solutions that have come before us have hurt women. We as a company have paid a penance for that. We are at our final stages. When that goes, never looking back. So, from an investor standpoint, I mean, some would argue we're highly, highly, highly undervalued. I have 180 patents. 180 patents. I have patents that have issued that will protect FemBlock for the next 30 plus years. So we not only have IP protection on everything, we can manufacture it in a profitable way, and our markets are enormous. Now's the time. And I hear a lot of
I was
people
gonna
say, oh,
ask
this
you about
guy's
the
underrated.
patents.
Yep.
I was gonna
Yep.
ask you about the patents. I saw that you guys had 180 patents. But now that, like, you're a revenue company, you're not looking back. When do you think you're gonna start seeing a big jump in revenue? I know you can't give me a number, but is it quarter 2, quarter 3, quarter 4, quarter 1? Where you
Yeah.
guys? Because I know you guys are rolling that stuff with the conglomerates out now. You
Yep.
guys on the West Coast, you guys are on the East Coast, and then you guys are moving to other countries.
Yep.
So kind of like when we're gonna see that first quarter 10, that 10Q out, you
Yeah.
know.
I mean, I'd say, as we're continuing to get the word out, it's of course the worst time to like launch out. It's the holidays, right? And a lot of the centers close in December. So it's, yay, we're going, but it's like nobody's around. It's just frustrating. It's like one of my trials that I started the week of COVID. I'm like, God damn. It's like one of those things, yeah, because you feel the momentum and then it slams shut with the holidays. And same thing with Europe, right? But we believe that, take a quarter to get the exposure out, to get the word out to patients. And we're likely to start to see real momentum in the middle of the year, at least in our estimates. And then because it's a recurring business model, once the word is out, once people start using the product, they'll keep using it. And then the demand for patients as the word gets out, as people continue to get pregnant, as we start to tell their stories, as they start to tell their stories themselves, all those things will help build the momentum for the product. And it's, a fraction of the cost. At the end of the day, people really want to have a child. Try for a fraction of the cost. At least try this. Is really the messaging. And then from an investor standpoint, we're going to hit some milestones for FemBlock next year. So it's a really unique company being this small to have manufacturing, multiple products in the bag, and have a blockbuster clinical late stage product as well as revenue producing products in a small little company. So, we have all those types of milestones on the horizon from a clinical standpoint that we can report out as well. So lots of news flow to help bolster, and the impact for the stock.
So one other question is, I know you guys say you guys are small. Are you guys looking to grow people wise? Are you gonna stay lean, tight, you know, be involved in have like a growth with people, or are you guys gonna stay lean and tight?
We've grown a bit already as we've added like production folks to build more product to make sure we're at the ready. Like I've always been lean. And I think that's why we've survived the storm. Fundraising for a women's health company, no matter what the blockbusters look like, it's really hard. Many people are already gone. Like, I can't, more not success stories than success stories. It's a really hard sector. But, had I not been lean, it would have been potentially catastrophic. So I think, we'll build as necessary. And unfortunately, I think, I just read an article recently that I think it's a common theme across a lot of companies where people are asking their employees to wear a lot of different hats and stretch a little bit thinner. We've always been like that here. And the people that are at Femasys believe so much in the mission that they've been doing that for a long time. I have a lot of longevity here. So it's par for the course. And, we'll grow steady. We'll feed it when the revenue's there, and then we'll grow accordingly. And that way we're never biting off more than we can support in the event that times and something unprecedented happen. we're I think that's the best way for us to roll it out.
Thank you so much, Kathy. I appreciate it. It's been wonderful, and I do like to do a conclusion at the end to just kind of I understand, and you can correct me if I'm wrong. This is what I got. The market opportunity for FemaSeed is kind of huge. You know, what I mean, you got over 10 million women who struggle with infertility, 13 women who considered permanent birth control options. Um, you have unique solution, FemiSeed, infertility treatment, FemBlock, non-surgical birth control. Am I correct? Am I going down the
Correct. Yep.
right? So, and differentiators, minimal complication due to invasive, innovative technologies, and you're commercial ready. You're in house. You're in house manufacturing. Your regulatory approval in U.S., Europe, Japan, and Canada. Am I correct?
You're right.
You know what I mean? So the market opportunity for you guys is humongous. All I see, I read some analysts um that has you guys at a buy rating at strong buy rating. You know what I mean? $10. Um, it seems like if you guys get the revenue middle of next year and things go well and you guys keep rolling out and moving on to these conglomerates, more people hear about it. I just don't see how your stock can't fly up. You really got something going here. I think the last 20 years you use that time very well. Very few company can even come close to the stage you're at in that sort of time frame. What's one thing you can tell before we get off this? Before we get off, what's one thing you would like the investors to know about your company?
Look, I know women's health is hard, and there hasn't been a lot of success stories, and there aren't good comparables. But when something looks this good, it could be this good, and I think a lot of people look at the stock price and they'll ask me, well, everything I've heard, this is so amazing. It's incredible. Why is the stock trading there? Don't make us pay the price for the market beating us up, and second guess a good thing, because this is the real deal. We've worked hard to be here. We're doing this for women every day, 51% of our population. And I think there's no question that this is the right time for the company and the right time to be having these discussions. And, you're a guy and you totally get it, and it's cool to be able to have these conversations. Most of the time I'm talking to men and I see this acceptance of the things that we're working on, where I didn't always feel that in the walk of the last 20 years. So I'm really grateful for that. And this is a family solution. This is about making things better for whether it's your mother, your daughter, your wife. So, from an investor standpoint, take another look. And I promise you like what you'll see.
Thank you so much, Kathy. I really appreciate you coming on my show, and I know everybody's gonna love it. Thank you.
Thank you so much.